Well, yesterday the NBA suspends its season after they learned the Jazz center Rudy Gobert had contracted coronavirus, and then
see, it's hard to spit out words, Coop. Just these last 24 hours it feels like I'm in a movie, in a daze. It's been some of the craziest stuff I never thought we'd be here. Yeah, it's tough to spit out words. I apologize.
And as a result of Rudy Gobert testing positive, as you know, the Jazz team was quarantined in the Chesapeake Bay Arena in Oklahoma City. Late night. And all those players and Jazz employees were tested. All the Oklahoma City Thunder players and front office people were tested. 58 tests in all. And one more came back positive. Yeah. That was Jazz guard Donovan Mitchell. So you had 2 players that tested positive for coronavirus. And I think, Cam, as we look across the landscape of our sports here in America, you know, people kind of look at the professional athletes as being invincible. Yeah. And I think this brought a little bit of realism to everyone. It kind of hit home. And so as a result, we saw the NHL, Major League Baseball.
Before you say that, this morning, that came this morning, and then all of a sudden, and so we woke up to that news, and we've known what the Jazz have been through all night, and so that's what we woke up to, and then all of a sudden today was like a domino effect that just things started to happen as the day started going on, right? You had, first of all the tournaments being canceled from the Big Ten, the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12, all that's going down, and then it just started going to leagues after that.
That's where I had an issue was with the other conferences having to cancel their tournaments because there was simply no direction, no leadership from Mark Emmert and the NCAA. You had ASU come out and say, hey, we're not going to play any more sports at all. We're going to suspend it all. Then there was Kansas and Duke saying likewise. So then finally, Mark Emmert got up off his behind and started to do something. I mean, and when they did something, Cam, I didn't expect this. You know, everyone else is suspending their seasons. This man has canceled every sporting event, including March Madness for the rest of the
College
season.
World Series, softball, golf that was supposed to be held here in the Valley a little bit later on this year too as well. You know what Coop is alluding to. So as the conference tournaments started to be canceled one by one in the morning, you didn't really see any action or any direction from the NCAA what was going to happen. Every tournament canceled 15 minutes after the next one. Then you had schools like Coop was saying, ASU, Duke, and Kansas, who all came out and said, hey, we're canceling all sports the rest of the year. We're not playing whatsoever. And then finally, the NCAA tournament was canceled. Coop, I brought that idea to you about 2 weeks ago, and you told me I was crazy. And I think a lot of people told me I was crazy. No, and I thought they would not cancel the tournament and that they would play games without fans in the stands because they still wanted to put them on TV. I think most people and I'll agree with you. I think most people never thought we'd get to what we got today. Your reaction to that as well.
I didn't think we'd ever see that. I just thought there was just way too much money at stake. And if it came down to it, that, they would play in an empty arena before they would cancel the entire tournament. Yeah. Clearly I was wrong, and clearly I had no idea that this epidemic had reached such a global situation that it has now. A crisis, I should use.
Yeah, our executive producer, Jeff Snyder's here.
Ask people to submit questions.
There we go. If you have any questions out there, please submit them. We're happy to answer them. We're just going to kind of talk things out here. I've been out at spring training all day trying to talk to some of the Diamondbacks. Coop's been back here in the office, and this is really the first time he and I have just kind of sat down, kind of take a deep breath and really talk about today because it has been so crazy, and I'm sure just like many of you at home who have way more important things to think about, your mind just hasn't stopped going all day long, and it's kind of the same thing for us here. After the NCAA tournament news came down, around that time too as well, the timetable's blurry. Of course, the NHL suspended their season. The Coyotes were supposed to play tonight. In fact, judging from the time the puck's supposed to drop, it was supposed to drop any minute now. They were also supposed to practice today. The NHL first told teams not to conduct any business today. That turned into suspending their season for now. And then as the morning went on out there at spring training, you're waiting for baseball to do something, and they finally did. They canceled all spring training games, and they pushed back opening day 2 weeks. And it sounds like baseball operations, as far as planning for the season, will not resume for another 2 weeks. Coop, your thoughts on the NHL and Major League Baseball deciding to do that?
Well, look, baseball's okay. Their season hasn't even started. But the NHL, I don't know how they're going to make this work. I mean, the Coyotes basically had 12 games left. They're 4 points out of actually 3 points out of a playoff spot, and so they're very much in it. And so you had a cluster of teams right there with the Coyotes all vying for the last couple playoff spots in the West. So how do you resolve that situation?
A lot of basketball and hockey teams play in the same arena too, by the way. Schedule is going to be an issue moving forward.
No question about it. See, and as we talked about, the baseball season hasn't even started, and the only team that shared its stadium with another was the Oakland A's and Raiders. The Raiders are gone to Vegas, so it's no longer an issue. So not too concerned about baseball, but I don't know how hockey's going to do this season. The NBA, that was pretty much already decided. There weren't too many other races left that had to be playoff positions decided. So I think I think the Suns had 20 games, 19 games left. So you just come back with like maybe 7 games left. Each team plays 7 games, so they can get their legs, their wheels and stuff, and then you go right into the playoffs. I think that's how the NBA will do its deal. But hockey, there are way too many important games still left on the table, and I don't know how they're going to do
Every league is kind of taking their own policy. We haven't heard much from the NFL besides they're going to cancel some meetings here coming up. We know nothing about the draft in Vegas. Yes, we know a lot of people. I'm just telling them, we know nothing about the draft in Vegas. If there was ever an event to cancel for the NFL, it would be the draft in Vegas. And they could just do it on some phone webcast somewhere. They really don't need to hold the draft.
Sure, so you got to hold the draft.
Well, Coop, you could do that in the basement of the NFL and just call it a day. You don't necessarily need to do it. If there was one event the NFL can cancel, it's the draft moving forward. That's an easy one.
They don't need to cancel anything.
But that's at the end of April. We haven't even got to April yet, folks.
Free agency starts next week.
Yeah.
You don't need that doesn't need to stop at all. If anything, you want to do maybe you stop the number of prospects that you fly in to your facility.
Some staffs have done that. They've taken their coaches off the road.
And as far as the NFL draft is concerned, look, all you have to do is modify things. Instead of having the.
How can you modify things on the Vegas Strip?
You're going to have to.
You have to close the whole Vegas down. No one is allowed from Caesars to Mandalay Bay.
We see every year the players in a green room with their parents,
I know.
And they come on the stage as a commissioner. Hey, you just eliminate that aspect of it.
I don't think it makes much sense. See? You don't even think it makes much sense.
Hey, look, it does make sense to do what we're seeing, but that's the world we live in now. And so, look, the NFL, of all the leagues, they're of our leagues concerned. They're not.
The one thing I wanted to point out to everybody there, each league is kind of different here. So the NBA, some news a little bit later on this evening that just kind of came down. They're going to revisit everything in 30 days. No basketball for 30 days. They've actually encouraged players these first couple of days to stay home, to not come to the arena, to work from home. No practices, nothing like that until March 16th is when they'll kind of revisit when teams can get back together. So for the weekend, at least until Monday, teams will not get together. They're not going to practice. They're not going to hold anything. And 30 days is what the owners have suggestions to Adam Silver about when to revisit as far as moving forward what the NBA should do. We haven't heard anything from the NHL yet as far as if they're going to hold workouts or hold team activities while their season is suspended. Major League Baseball, in talking with a lot of people at the Diamondbacks today, CEO Derek Hall and owner Ken Kendrick, the D-backs are going to keep their facility open. They're encouraging their players to work out there. In fact, the D-backs, they're holding a not mandatory but workout tomorrow because they can't make a mandatory while the season's on hold, but the team is going to stick around. They're going to continue to work out the facility and continue to prep for spring training. And Derek Hall, when I asked him today point blank, when do you expect normal baseball to resume, he didn't really have an answer. They're not sure if they're going to make up spring training games. He is pretty positive, though, that they're not going to lose any games moving forward, but he did say 2 weeks, and that, yes, they're pushing back opening day 2 weeks, but 2 weeks for when it sounds like they'll revisit and hope to have baseball somewhat back to normal in 2 weeks. But he did mention the fact that, hey, this can be for a long time, it could be a short time. No one knows, and that's the uncertainty factor with everything going on right now.
Yeah, and it's really no big. Baseball has time because their season hasn't started. But I want to get back to the NCAA for a minute. And of course, if you have any questions, please send them our way. I really feel bad for seniors, and I'll just bring it closer to home. Arizona State had 3 seniors: Rob Edwards, Mickey Mitchell, and walk-on Grant Fogarty. None of these players are NBA caliber players. I think Edwards has a chance to play internationally overseas, but for them, this tournament meant everything. And so to have it taken away from him. And again, I'm just making it singular to ASU, but there are so many others across the
You could say the
like
ASU women's basketball team that had
absolutely.
shocked the world with their performance too as well.
Absolutely. And so
other sports, you know what I mean? Spencer Torkelson chasing the ASU
and so
home run record.
I would love to see the NCAA grant or give back the senior season to those players going forward. I mean, I don't know that they'll do that, but I just think that there's something. And you mentioned Spencer Torkelson, who's not as who's a couple home runs away from Bob Horner's.
Yeah,
look,
I think three
ASU
or four.
is a baseball team, is a team that is one of the favorites to win it all. Yeah. And so you can they have seniors there. Have they played their final game at ASU just 15 games into the season? Look, I think the NCAA has a lot of discussion to do, and one of the things I'd love to see them do is give those kids their senior season back.
That was the toughest. That was one of the toughest parts about today. I mean, there's so many people affected with this. Nick Ahmed for the D-backs brought up a good point. You know, the Diamondbacks are fortunate. They live here. They can go home. They go home to their houses. But a lot of guys who stay out here with other teams, they rent houses. They bring their families out here. You know, they move for a month. They sign a month's lease. That month's lease is up. Come here probably within the next couple of weeks. Do you extend it? Do you stick around? What's going to happen? There's just workers at the ballpark. You know, Derek Hall touched on that a little bit. He's going to take care of his workers and spring training employees. So they have no plan yet, but he assured me that that's going to happen. So many people affected by it. But then you heard the stories of when you were listening to coaches, when they were reacting to the news that the NCAA tournament was canceled. Mark Few of Gonzaga found out live on TV. He was literally in the middle of a sentence saying, I hope they don't cancel or postpone the tournament. ESPN interrupted and said, hey, they canceled the tournament. And he just said that's unfortunate. John Calipari from Kentucky was almost in tears talking about his team and describing the fact that they will not get that chance to play for that NCAA tournament and what his players meant to him. It was really heartbreaking to hear some of these coaches described how upset their players were, and there was a great question to Calipari about if they understood the message. And he said, I don't know, but hopefully I said the right things in that situation where they at least got a grasp of the situation.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think all the players and coaches and everyone understands the global health crisis that's taking place relative to this situation. So, you know, there's an understanding there. But again, to your point, even Bobby Hurley here locally, you know, realizes that they're not going to be able to play these games now. So he says that, hey, he wants to see the Selection Sunday process still take place and give the schools the reward of hearing their names in the tournament. And for ASU, it would mean the world because it'd be their third consecutive NCAA tournament.
Yes, Jeff. Oh.
Talk about Dan Majerle.
Our executive producer, Jeff Schneider, is right here, too, as well. We're all just kind of hanging out. I mean, this is what we do in our spare time, folks. We hang out and we talk sports. Unfortunately, these past 2 days, we haven't done a lot of it. With all this going on, you know, Coop and I are about ready to go downstairs and do the 6 o'clock show.
I still don't believe it.
My phone buzzes, and I look down. It's a message from the GCU men's basketball team. They have parted ways. This is breaking news within the last hour with men's head basketball coach Dan Majerle. Of course, Dan Majerle started that program. Former Suns legend, Thunder Dan. You knew him back in the day. We used to take his shirt off for every commercial. You know, we've got to know him over the past couple of years. Coop, you've known him for a long time. But as the GCU men's basketball coach, he was so proud to lead that university. We know no details more than the fact that they have parted ways. What's the deal? Right. This was kind of a down year for GCU. I believe they were the 3rd seed in the WAC tournament. They were hoping to continue going on like that and building what they built over the years. But Coop, your reaction to the news when you heard that Majerle was fired?
I think there has to be some type of philosophical difference because I know this isn't a performance-based party.
I would hope it's not.
I guarantee it. Yeah. Look, GCU would be absolutely foolish to let this man walk over performance. Yeah. Dan Majerle is the face of that program, without question. His popularity off the chart. They won't get anyone else of his ilk to step in at GCU. So there had to be some type of philosophical difference there, and we don't know what it is. I'm only just speculating because, if they would let this man go because of a down season this year, I can't give you my thoughts on the airwaves of my feelings about GCU. So I got to keep it clean.
The FCC would be calling.
Yeah, they'll be all over me.
You can't leave us. You can't leave us yet. You're stuck.
Even though I got 5 months left.
You're stuck until August. Yeah, it's like I said, we know nothing. I don't know any details. We're going to work on getting a hold of Dan as soon as we're done with this and figuring out what's going on. But shocking to say the least. Just
and if you know anything, please call us and let us know.
I mean, shocking to say the least. I've spent a lot of time over at GCU from time to time over these past couple of years. Dan has always been the most gracious with his time. Whether it was we ate at his restaurant one time and talked about the old days. We talked about his love of GCU basketball. I remember I asked him, Dan, you look so worried about your kids. He goes, I always worry about my kids. They're all like my children. He was so, at least the last time we talked about it, he was so happy to be the head coach out at GCU. And so, like I said, we know nothing about what has happened. We just know the two sides have parted ways. But when you thought of GCU basketball, you thought of Thunder Dan Majerle and what he had done for that program how he put that program on the map nationally.
Well, let me say
that's the biggest thing.
Let me say this. When I first learned that GCU was trying to get a Division I men's basketball program, I'm like, oh, gee, good luck there. That's going to be some tough sledding.
Yeah. Because at the time you didn't know what was going to happen.
So GCU's on probation, trying to wait for their time period to come up where they get certified as a Division I program. And I'll be honest, I was expecting some real rough times, some empty buildings and stuff. I mean, my goodness, the havocs, that whole arena, the scene, the surroundings,
it really is. When that place is rocking,
something really, really, really special.
It's one of the best environments in
exceeded
basketball.
any of my expectations or thoughts I had relative to that program. So look, hats off to Dan and GC, what they've done. And as you said, you've been there, you've seen some really special times there. I'm still stunned over this. It has to be some type of philosophical difference.
We're going to wrap this up here just to kind of recap the day. College sports canceled for the rest of the year. You name it, whatever was going to be played for the rest of the year, from golf to hockey, men's and women's basketball, softball, baseball, all canceled for the rest of the year. The NBA is going to revisit everything in 30 days. They don't even want teams to get together until Monday at the earliest. So we won't see the Suns probably all weekend. The Coyotes and the NHL have suspended their season. We're not sure what their timeline is for anything. We do know the D-backs have suspended. Major League Baseball has suspended spring training and pushed back opening day 2 weeks. Players are still at least 2 weeks. Players are still allowed to work out the facilities. They're going to revisit everything in 2 weeks and see when they can get some normalcy back in there every day. Dan Majerle parted ways with GCU. He is no longer the head men's basketball coach there. And also, we didn't even mention this, but Charles Barkley tonight on NBA TV had to call in on their special coronavirus show. And he said he's feeling ill. The doctor said he should self-quarantine for 48 hours. He was tested for the coronavirus. His results have not come back yet. But Charles Barkley was tested for the coronavirus, no results yet. So he's feeling sick right now. Our thoughts and prayers with Charles. I know you know Charles a very long time.
Brother, Charles is one of the more special, unique individuals you'll ever run across. I've never in my 30-plus years of covering an athlete run across someone who
like Charles.
He absolutely gets it, and so I love to see his interaction with fans and him not thinking that he's too big for anyone, be it media, fans, whatever.
Anybody.
Love the man. He's a nice guy.
That was all the breaking news today. There was a whole lot more yesterday. We're going to try and put it all together, get some more interviews, talk to some more people around the Valley, and hopefully we'll put everything together for you Sunday night on 12 Sports Tonight at 10:30, a special what this week has been in sports because of the coronavirus, what it could mean moving forward. We're going to try and answer all your questions, of course, Sunday night, 10:30 here on 12 Sports Tonight. What it means locally, nationally, we'll have it all for you Sunday night.
Say good night. I got work.
We got work to do.
Say good night.
The day's only half over.
Thanks for watching.